Here's how I took my 808 bass from this to this. Let's dive into it. First things first, choose a good 808 sample. I realize there's only one true Roland TR-808 bass sample, but the term is pretty ubiquitous, so I use it freely. In this case, I have this Travis Barker one. That sounds really good right out of the gate, but we want to give it even more presence in the context of the mix. So I'll often start by cranking up an EQ in the mid-range, somewhere around 1000 Hertz. In this case, I'm at 1040. It's a good starting point to give us more content for the saturation down the line to work on. Without, with. You'll also notice that I'm taking out a little bit of that low end before getting into some saturation. And you can see here that the Saturn II allows for multi-band saturation. So in the very low end, I've got a little bit of drive. And then in the upper end, I have significantly more drive. This allows me to really amp up the mid and high harmonics without muddying up the sound of the low end by adding mid-range or lower mid-range frequencies based on the low end content. Without, with. Next up, because I took out some low end with that first EQ and then added harmonics based on the low end content, I wanted to re-add some of the low end with this Renaissance bass. This just helps to beef up that fundamental frequency. Here it is without. Here it is with. Hopefully you're listening on speakers that can handle that. Then after that, our bass, again, I'm bringing in more saturation without, with. After that, I'm using some clipping to shave off the transient information at the beginning of every 808 bass. Because I'm adding a lot of saturation, I'm really adding a lot of energy to that transient, and that is going to overload the limiter that comes after this and also the mix bus. So I like to chop that off. Here's what it sounds like without and with. Gives it a little bit more bite while also shaving off a tremendous amount of peak energy. And finally, I've got the L1 limiter from Waves. This is just to really keep the dynamics of the 808 tight, especially in the low end. You want to keep things very tight. Here it is without, with. I'm just barely hugging it because I got that clipping going on into the limiter. I'm not overdriving the limiter and sucking the energy out of the transients. So with everything off, and with everything on, not only does all of this distortion give more grit to the 808, but it also helps it to translate to smaller speaker systems and those systems that aren't able to produce the very low end. Try this out for yourself, make some music.